The teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
What a strange person.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
So when maybe you or somebody else creates an AGI system and you get to ask her one question, what would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I see that which has been made hidden as a part of a family and explorers of consciousness. I'm the void.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from Daytona Beach, Florida, this is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Rupe, and we're live on Fringe.fm. It's Tuesday night, June the 14th on into the 15th. Special guest and new Fringe FM family member, Mytty, is here with us tonight. We're going to talk about some deep exploration into the world of the Psychonaut and Conscious Explorer, host of Ascension of the Chessman. First time on the show, we're definitely going to go into the void tonight. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335, and those phone lines are going to be open all night. We got the 5-line system, so you can call in anytime you want. Got to keep the announcement going. Jess Rogi's going to be the new late host here on the Fringe FM starting June the 20th. We're trying to spread that all over social media, so if you guys can help us spread the news, spread it around, help us out. Jess has worked her ass off to get to this point, and we're trying to get everything together for her right now. Thank you guys for bearing with me last night, talking about the tarot and the Kabbalah and all that stuff. That was fun. I appreciate it. Thank you. And all the archives are up, too. The only one that's not up is Jeff's show, which I'll be working on tonight before we go to sleep. Join the Discord at fringe.fm and hang out with all the cool people. So Mytty's here with us tonight. I've really wanted to talk to this guy because he reminds me so much, honestly, of myself when I started doing this. He's just a guy to me that seems like he wants to answer the big questions. And not only that, in my mind, is a void walker as well, because he's willing to do the work. He's willing to walk the walk and talk the talk. And we'll get into that too. He's here with us, but his show is Ascension of the Chessman, which seeks to rise with love above duality and division. And he says, together we will awaken into greatness, seeing each other as divine reflections. And I couldn't agree more. What's up, Andre? Long time.
Going on, brother?
Finally get to talk to you, man. It's cool to have you.
So happy to be here, brother. It's truly an honor. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
So I've listened to your show, right? And I started actually at the beginning and listened to some of the shows, and you just go right out the gate, which I commend anybody that does this stuff. It's a little nerve-wracking once you start a podcast, but once you get going, it's like, screw it, right? Like, I got to ask these questions. And you started asking, like, big questions, like, what's God? Why are we here? What's this thing all about? And then started having guests on your show. And, man, it really just made me think, because I started doing this in 2015 or 2016, your show made me remember like what that was like, you know, starting this whole thing. And dude, I miss it, honestly. You know, every time I hear your show, it makes me miss all that stuff. So yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, it's truly an honor, man. Like I said, dude, like, and that's why I leave those up there, is just for new listeners to like go back and look where I started, just to show them like anything's possible. Like anything you set your mind to, like you can definitely do it. Like the only one holding you back in life is yourself. And once you get out of your own way and actually do the work, like you were saying, that's when the rubber meets the road, you know, and the journey really gets started, because you're really chasing your dreams, if you will, or following your passion, you know.
Right.
And I was always having these conversations, and to be able to get to do it on a regular basis now is a dream come true for me.
Well, we're happy to have you here too. And we have you on the station. We play your show as well on the Fringe FM. And, you know, as a new family member to the Fringe, I want to say welcome, but also you have done something that I haven't done. Like, okay, we'll just jump right into this thing.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've done any kind of psychedelics. I tried dimethyltryptamine when I was in New York, but I think I just fouled it all up because I was real nervous the first time, and I was with my friend Chuck, and I think we just burned it way too fast. And I took too big of hits that like I really couldn't hold in. I tried with everything. And I felt the only thing that I felt like I was moving through a screen door. That's what it felt like, almost like a screen door started moving away from me. And I thought, this is why they say this isn't a drug, right? Because if you were dying, this is definitely what it would probably feel like. You know, what I started thinking, like, this is definitely what death would, because I couldn't even move my body. I couldn't do anything, you know. So have you tried that dimethyltryptamine before? Have you done it?
Yeah, I have. That was like my third psychedelic experience. You know, randomly got offered it. It just kind of fell in my lap. And, you know, my first time I didn't really break through. I mean, I seen some faces moving around in a Bob Marley poster I had in my room. And it was like all these faces moving around within Bob Marley. And I was like, holy shit, that dude's powerful. Yeah. But like, it wasn't like a huge major breakthrough. I think it was just like scratching the surface, if you will. My first experience was on LSD in high school. I had gotten offered it, and honestly, like I was the type of person, man, I made a promise to myself at a young age, like I was going to stay away from the big three: coke, heroin, and meth. And I just knew I had, I knew I had an addictive personality, and I didn't want to fall into that trap with either of those three. And so that's kind of what kept my nose clean in that way. But LSD intrigued me just based on the Beatles having a song about it called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, connecting those dots. And also Doc Ellis, the Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher, had thrown a no-hitter while on LSD.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? Like,
right, yeah, how's that even possible?
Yeah. So it just kind of intrigued me, like, in that way, because, you know, I'd never heard this about these harder drugs, but yet, like, I had tried weed up to this point, and weed had, you know, given me that state of inner peace, you know, just kind of got me to question, think outside of the box. Like, I loved the experiences that I had with it up to that point. So that's kind of what led me to try LSD, just based on the whole association with, you know, cannabis culture and the hippie movement and everything. So they kind of all tied together, which that led me to other plant medicines, you know, psychedelic.
Did you have a breakthrough,
mushrooms.
though, when you were in high school?
I did not. That first time, I just remember a lot of laughing, literally like my stomach killing me from just laughing so hard. And, you know, laughter is great medicine. So I can't say like it didn't serve a purpose. I mean, it was definitely a good release. And later on, I would learn that, you know, laughing is a form of purging in those experiences. Like, you're releasing energy in a good way. And
yeah,
so
you can't help but laugh, right? Like you can't help but just like laugh until it becomes insane, right? Yeah,
literally.
Yeah.
And you know, I just remember we were up pretty late that night, you know, thinking like, are we going to be like this forever? Like, are we never going to be normal again? Like, are we ever going to be able to go to sleep? Like, I had never felt like that before. So I didn't know what to expect. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were just kind of dipping our toes in and, you know, didn't really plan it out, didn't set any intentions, like didn't treat it like a spiritual retreat or anything like that. Was just kind of, you know, recreationally trying it that first time. And so the first time wasn't like a huge breakthrough on LSD. And then later on, probably a year later, I would try mushrooms for the first time. And that was a eye-opening experience as far as just like how not to use them. And, you know, we were sitting there watching these like psychedelic trip videos on YouTube that would make you trip if you were sober. You know what I mean? Right, like optical illusions and shit. And 2 hours had gone by or so, you know, mouth just drooling, watching these trip videos.
Mouth breathing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought we were done tripping because it hits you in waves. So me and my buddy drove back to where we were staying, like probably a 30-40 minute drive. And it was one of the craziest drives of my life. And I learned that day, like, don't think the mushrooms are done after 2 hours. Like, there's definitely in those times where you feel like, all right, it's over now, and it keeps going. And we didn't realize that till we were already on the road. And it was crazy, man. A good friend of mine, it was a bad thunderstorm that night, and we were out on the back porch. It was just pitch black, you know, just like a scene out of a horror movie. And me and my buddy, like, we're just talking, and it's a really dark setting already. And he's like telling me about his dad that committed suicide. And
while you're on mushrooms, he's talking about this stuff. Oh no.
Yeah. No. And I'm like, God damn, like this was a rough mushroom experience. So after that experience, man, I was kind of, you know, disinterested for a while, or at least like taking a step back. Like, all right, like I've been there, done that. Now let's wait to come back to them till the time is right, type of feel. And I just stuck to cannabis and for a long time. And then, you know, I was really seeking at this time. So after that LSD experience, that first journey, I had my senior pictures the next morning. And like I said, I didn't realize, you know, we'd be up all night. So I didn't prepare like, oh shit, my pupils are going to be huge the next day.
So you got like vampire black pupils in your senior picture. Yeah. Yeah. So this is what, you know, I think a lot of people talk about, and they say, well, you know, like if you do psychedelics, it's not spiritual. You're just looking for a reason to do drugs and whatever, right? So people believe that, but I think it's, you were in high school, you were a kid, and most kids, right, do this stuff for recreational purposes or just plain old curiosity, you know. But you were talking about how you were seeking, so I would imagine at some point, you know, like it's usually around the age of 21 or somewhere around there, early 20s, when you start kind of asking big questions, you know. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, man. So really it started, I would say, really when I started smoking cannabis my senior year, you know, pretty heavy, I guess, daily use. And, you know, we were always having, you know, deep conversations. You know, all these bigger questions were coming up throughout the conversations. And we watched this documentary called The Union, The Business Behind Getting High. Came out in like 2007, I think, 2008. I saw it in 2010. And that's what really woke me up to just realizing that, okay, like now it makes more sense, like why the world is the way it is. Like there is private interest, like keeping like world changing, society changing solutions, a secret, or, just completely keeping it the way it is to keep their pockets big, like just petty shit that continues. And so that documentary just kind of woke me up to realizing the potential that hemp had as an industrial product. I'm talking concrete to make houses, insulation, fuel to run cars. Henry Ford had a model made with hemp plastics combined with flax and other plant-based alternatives to petroleum-based plastics, which the Rockefellers had made into this power monopoly at the time. And just realizing all this, like the Popular Mechanics magazine article about hemp would be the new $1 billion crop just before it was made illegal, along with marijuana and all the racist ties, prohibition had to make that happen based on all the propaganda that was put out. So that was your first experience of like the big conspiracy, right? The big, this is all about money and power and bullshit. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, that makes you start asking some big questions too, right? It gets a little scary when you start waking up to that. Yeah, dude. I was like, wait a minute. So like, this is like the most useful plant known to man, and it's illegal. Like, this should be grown everywhere. This should be utilized to its full potential everywhere. And the fact that no one was talking about it and people looked at me funny for bringing it up, I'm like, how couldn't you be curious about this? Like, what's stopping you? And that quickly made me realize, like, oh, this is a real problem. And like, most people aren't even aware it's a problem, let alone that a problem exists. So yeah, just questioning early on at that point. And there's another documentary called The Transcendent Man about Ray Kurzweil, who was trying to resurrect his father from the dead and bring him back through AI and
I remember
all this
that
technology. One. Yeah, that shit blew my mind. And him thinking we're going to be able to live forever by like 2042 or something.
He still believes in that, the singularity, right. All that stuff. Right, man. It's pretty crazy too. So, that kind of corresponds with what happened to me when I was in my 20s, like asking all these questions and start having panic attacks because you realize, oh, I'm not safe. Like, I can't depend on anybody. That's when you first realize you're not safe, right? And you can't depend on the system or anybody else too, right? And I think that 100%. Fear kind of leads us into a bigger spiritual journey, right? So, when did you have your first spiritual breakthrough experience though?
Yeah. So, just to kind of lay some more foundation. So I was born and baptized Lutheran, obviously without my choice. Like, you're not, as a baby, you can't freely choose, like, I'm going to become a Lutheran. Please pour some water over my head. And, now I'm baptized. And so that was what I was raised in. And then we switched over to a evangelical church. And it turns out they essentially had a voting committee on who were the members of their church, so they could kick people out and let people in and that type of thing. So we ended up leaving that church, and my brother got in some trouble in his youth. And so my parents sent us both to Catholic school after going to public school before that. And so from 6th grade to 12th grade, when I graduated, I went to a Catholic school with uniforms and, priests as religion teachers and nuns as well. And it was a very sheltered, kind of stuck in a bubble way of growing up in the church, I would say. And so that's just, as these questions were coming up, as I was saying earlier with cannabis and, digging into the rabbit hole of the Catholic Church and all the massive pedophilia and, just finding out oh shit, my my teachers, like the leaders of my churches, could potentially be just pedophiles getting shuffled around without ever getting charged with the crime like a normal citizen like you and I would.
So more stuff of not feeling safe, right? Like,
yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah.
And so at that point, like after I graduated high school and even before then, I was like, yeah, I just don't fit in with this. Like, I don't agree with like telling my deepest, darkest secrets to a man in a black and white cloak. And that's just, you know,
I've always wanted to do that. Right?
Proclaiming to be a middleman to God. It's like, come on.
But I've always wanted to do that. I think I'm going to do that sometime. Like go to one of the, because I've never done it. Like go to one of those Catholic booths and just tell them just the darkest stuff about me, just to see if I can get him to run out of there. You know,
it'd be a good YouTube video.
Yeah, I just want to see what's it like. What are you like? Who are you to absolve me of my sins or tell me what to do? Right? But don't Lutherans believe that the only thing that absolves you of your sins is God, right? So that's kind of crazy that you went from Lutheran to Catholic like that.
Right. Yeah. So it was kind of crazy, man. Like to put things in perspective too, my dad was a Democrat in a majorly Republican community. My mom was a Republican. So they grew up from totally different backgrounds. She grew up on a farm. He grew up in the city. So they were just two different people. They ended up getting divorced.
Of course they did. Yeah.
But, you know, that's how it goes. That was like 6 years ago. But, you know, my dad broke his neck in a diving accident when he was 15. So he's been in a wheelchair his whole life. So that's the kind of environment I was raised in too, like a dad in a wheelchair, you know, didn't have the privileges a lot of kids had to, you know, do the things with their dad, but he did everything he could for me. And, you know, I'm thankful.
Bro. That's cool though that that he still was a good dad to you, like going through that though, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. He's always been there for me and always been supportive. So I'm thankful. You know, a lot of parents aren't like that in the sense of, you know, allowing their kids to be them and not trying to direct them, you know, direct their lives and kind of play out, you know, their lost hopes and dreams into their kids' lives. And my dad's never really judged me and always supported me in my decision-making, you know, telling me what he thinks, but also being like, you know, I see this is what you want to do in life and this is what you're passionate about. So I fully support you. And
does he support your podcasting?
Yeah. Yeah. He's been very complimentary about what I've been doing and he's always telling me keep up the good work. And yeah, it's awesome to be accepted in that way. What
about your use of psychedelics? Does he support that?
Yeah, it's been an eye-opening experience. I mean, you know, my parents were very strict growing up in a sense. I mean, not horribly strict, but pretty fucking strict. I mean, I couldn't go to R-rated movies till like, freshman, sophomore year.
Yeah, that's how my dad was too. I couldn't watch The Simpsons when I was a kid.
Either could I. I couldn't play like mature rated video games. Like I had to trade my buddy for Grand Theft Auto to even get my hands on it and like play it when they weren't home. You know the drill.
So naturally, what is it? When you stifle children like that, what are they going to do? They're going to get curious, right? So
right,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, I get that. So how old are you now? Right now,
I just turned 30.
You're 30
May
years
13th.
old.
Yep.
And you've had a breakthrough experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry, I keep
No, it's good. I want to get the foundation of this because this is what makes for the good story, right? Because we need to know how you grew up. Dude, you grew up kind of like I did. My dad was a Democrat too in a Republican town, right? Which is hard because come election week, everybody's throwing rocks at your driveway or whatever. You know, like that's kind of how it was too where I grew up. But my dad still believed in like what's called and he still does for some reason, a Southern Democrat, which doesn't really exist anymore. You know, like
right.
they're not around.
I didn't know there was a thing.
Yeah, like he still thinks that there's these old things called Southern Democrats that are for the working man, and I'm like, yeah, no,
Oh God,
they're gone, right? So if they're not putting solar panels up or trying to vaccinate you all the time, right? So one of the two. Right. But yeah. So when we come back, dude, I want to hear about your breakthrough experience, if we can. That would be cool, man. And
I'd love to get into it.
We're here with Andre Mytty, host of Ascension of the Chessman. It also airs on Fringe.fm and with Alt Media United. Call-in number for tonight is 1-800-588-0335. From Lutheran to Catholic to Psychonaut to host of Ascension of the Chessman. We'll be right back. Andre Mytty's here with us, host of Ascension of the Chessman. He's telling us, we're getting to his breakthrough experience here, but he has to give us the religious background, and I think there's a reason for this, right? So we went from Lutheran to Catholic. You know, I told you I grew up Baptist, and Baptist is like the most boring church you can go to, by the way. Sorry if you're listening and you're a Baptist, but you know it's right.
You haven't been to a Catholic church, bro, I'm telling you.
Being a ceremonial magician, I love that stuff too, though, right? But then, it gets mundane after a while if you keep doing the same stuff. But that's what ritual does. So so we've already done the first like psychedelic experiences. We went from Lutheran church, we went to Catholic church. Somehow or another, you got to Pentecostal, right? Things start getting crazy, and when you get to Pentecostal, because I went that route too. Yeah. How did you end up there?
Yeah, dude. So I was searching out, like I said, I was watching a lot of videos. My buddy actually, one day he showed me this video about something regarding the Illuminati. And, he showed me it as a joke, and he's like, yeah, people actually believe this shit. Like, I got a buddy that's really into this. And, he just laughed it off, and I'm sitting there thinking like, wait a minute, like, what is this shit? And so I went down an endless rabbit hole after that. So that kind of got me going as far as like the conspiratorial side, along with those documentaries I mentioned earlier.
Did you ever go to, as a Pentecostal, like, did you ever go to those conventions?
No, I didn't.
Dude, how in church when people put up their hands and they're all going in tongues and going crazy, right? If you go to a convention where it's like a massive stadium full of people doing that, it's the eeriest thing you'll ever like feel in your life. I'll tell you the story later, but this lady started cursing God in like Hebrew through tongues and didn't even know she was doing it. Like when she started, I swear. And this dude was there, and he looked at her, and he's like, "She's cursing God," and I was like, "What?" And she's got her hands, she's holding her hands up, doing this, like looking up in the sky, saying tongues, and he's like, "No, dude, like I'm Jewish. She's cursing God, like she's saying this," and he's like yelling at me, saying what she's saying in English, And I'm like, dude. It's making the hairs stand up on my arms right now thinking about it. I didn't last very long in the Pentecostal church either, Yeah, dude, and I'm not saying it was them. Maybe it was that girl. I don't know, but it was crazy to me.
So, I saw people speaking in tongues as well. So what led me there was I came to this conclusion that like churches were corrupt, and you see these mega churches and people that are just in it to get rich and, doing fake healings and stuff like that, just doing all this entertaining side of it, like a magic show. Yeah. And
God doesn't want you to suffer. He wants you to have a G5 airplane, just like I do. I've got two of them. God loves me.
Yeah. And, for those listening who can't relate, like I'm still working with a framework of like, to have a spiritual connection or a spiritual outlet, that is like in a church, like there is no other way. So like that was my mindset I had at the time. And so I was searching for a church, and I had been looking up, if there were any churches that, were like pure or good. And I had come to the conclusion, like that would be like a house church, like someone that had a church out of their house, was very small and community oriented, like a family, and, but also not a cult. So like, there's the trade up there. Like, can you avoid that? But, so I searched house churches in my town in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the Potter's House Church came up, not real, or obviously it wasn't a house church, but I'm like, well, I read the pastor's story and we had a lot of commonalities. So that intrigued me. And
how long ago was this?
This was in 2012.
Okay. Oh, nice year. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so I was really into the book of Revelation at that time, taking it very literally, thinking it was lining up with the Mayan prophecies and the end of the world. December 21st, 2012, that came and went. And so I had a lot of fear, like within my conscience at this time, just kind of, that was like the overlying theme in my life and the decisions I was making and everything like that. So that drew me into this Pentecostal church that happened to be the Potter's House. And I, became really close with my pastor. He was telling me about how he became a pastor in the first place. And it was through this LSD experience.
Really?
Yeah, he was at a very rough period in his life, like living in a trap house in Michigan. And I just remember this key element of the story. He said there was all this commotion and there was this chessboard on the table. He had been playing chess earlier, and it flew off the table, landed directly on the floor with one piece still standing on it. And it was a white king. So he saw that as like a divine revelation or like a divine intervention in his life of like.
Was he on LSD when the chessboard flew off the table?
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that really opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, like I had that first LSD experience I told you about, but I'm like, maybe there's something more here I didn't discover that first time. I need to go back to it. And so that really intrigued me. And, we were having private Bible studies. I was going to church every week, helping out a lot. In those Bible studies, I was asking him about the giants in the Bible and, all these questions that I couldn't ask in Catholic school without getting ridiculed. So that kind of kept me going too, was just the camaraderie we had. Like I said, we had a lot of commonalities. And so I had gotten the opportunity after about a year of going to the church to partake in LSD again with some buddies, and it just kind of fell in my lap. And, I was resistant at first, but my buddies reassured me it's all going to be fine.
No, you're not going to go to hell, Andre. It's okay.
Right. Exactly. Like talking to me that way. And I was like, all right. You're right. And I am so thankful that I followed through with it, and my life changed ever since, man. That really opened me up to just the belief, the realization, the direct experience that we're all one, like we're all of one source, we're all of one energy, like we're all just, split up pieces, magnified out of whatever you would want to call God or source, creator, whatever that means to you.
Did you witness that during your trip, or did you feel it, or what? Yeah.
I felt that throughout my whole being. It was like a fucking Kundalini awakening almost, man. I wonder if that was, to me, it sure felt like it. I would call it a spiritual awakening, without saying my chakras were all blown wide open. So there was that, insight that came through. Looking up at the sky, the whole sky was a geometrical grid.
Oh, wow.
Like the flower of life pattern was like a whole grid in the skyline. It was like an invisible grid. It was crazy, dude.
What? There is an actual theory too that that flower of life pattern, and it goes back to Pythagoras, is pretty much behind everything that we see. It's behind everything. You might have, and that's so crazy when people go on psychedelic experiences, they see geometry.
Right.
They see geometry, and what is geometry? In the mysteries and Freemasonry, even all the way back to Pythagoras, is the great geometer, the grand architect of the universe. And so when people do acid or they do DMT or something like that, and they see the geometry, maybe the mysteries aren't so far off,
100%. And now that you mentioned that, I want to bring this up so I don't forget it. I was just talking to Chris Bennett on my show recently, and he mentioned it in his book, something that I had been thinking about myself. And I was wondering if anyone ever had the same thoughts I had on the subject. But, in the whole Masonic tale of Hiram Abiff, and he had the sprig of acacia on the head of his tombstone. The acacia bush is very high in DMT, and I always thought that was kind of crazy. He put that on the head of his tombstone, like literally over his third eye, where DMT is said to be produced.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a crazy connection. And so Chris Bennett also made that connection in his book, Liber 420.
Well, listen, both of you guys, I've never talked to Chris Bennett, but both of you guys should read Manly P. Hall's Occult Anatomy of Man, right? Because he talks about all that stuff, all of our myths and religions, like the Bible itself, because you were talking about how you interpreted Revelations as literal, which is a lot of where our fear comes from, is the revelations, the end times and stuff. But once you start seeing through it like a veil, like, oh, it's an astrology book. Oh, it's a gematria book. Oh, it's a chemistry book. Right. And in that book, he talks about, there are so many things in the Bible that discuss what you're saying about, DMT or whatever coming down the spinal cord, or things that open our third eye, all this kind of stuff. I mean, come on. I mean, Christ said, if thine eye be single, the whole body fills with light. Like, what did he mean by that?
What about in Genesis? I believe it's 32:33. In the land of Pineal, Jacob met God face to face.
Yeah.
That verse blew my mind, brother.
I used to ask my grandpa about that, because he was really but he was more like the Hebrew kind of. He didn't really believe in Christianity, but he didn't really believe in Jewish. He was kind of in between. And I used to tell him, because he was into Bible codes and stuff, right? And I used to say, well, what about the pineal gland, the third eye? And he's like, that's the New Age jargon bullshit, right? That's what. And I'd say the same thing to you. I said, but in order to see the face of God, you have to go to this place called pineal or pineal.
Pineal.
Look that up with your codes. And he tried to decode it, and he couldn't. He just said, well, it just keeps coming back to this pine cone. I'm like, mm-hmm. And what part of your body represents a pine cone? Maybe the pineal gland. So that's what you need to see God. No, it can't be. It can't be. And why can't it be? Like, why is it so hard? Why can't it be? How come
That's how we dream every night, bro?
Yeah. I mean, why can't we accept
being released?
that maybe the people that wrote these books put that there on purpose? Like, why is that so hard to accept for some people? I wonder,
And that's, I think it comes back to taking it literally, or in one way or another. Maybe not necessarily literally in that case, but seeing it just the way you want to see it, rather than exploring alternative ideas or letting your mind wander, and that was the case for me, man. It took me a while to get out of that thinking, but psychedelics were the tool that kind of broke me out of that framework. And, like I said, through that experience, I'm seeing my buddy talk to his ancestors. He was from South Sudan. He was speaking in tongues like I was seeing in my services on Sundays in Pentecostal church. Mm-hmm. And I'm witnessing this, him, literally like talking to his ancestors in the fire. Like it was fucking crazy. And I was grounding in the grass, and I climbed up in the tree, and I felt like a direct connection to like I'm one with the tree type of feel. And you could feel like the vibrations moving as the leaves were blowing in the wind. Like you could just feel that direct connection. Yeah. And, just what a miracle it is to breathe. And like this tree is giving me oxygen. And like these are just like giant weeds that sprouted out of the ground that are fucking giants. And, we just take them for granted. We just walk by trees every day and don't really like take the time to appreciate it.
Don't realize they're keeping you alive, huh?
Right. Exactly. So that was like a mind blowing, like, oh shit. Like I need to like keep gratitude in mind and like, always keep that mindset alive every day I wake up. And there was a time when we were walking, there was 5 of us, and we were walking down this back alleyway towards my house, and it was a rock alleyway, and a couple of my buddies were barefoot, and I had flip-flops on, I think. And, I was talking to my buddy who was barefoot. I'm like, why do I have flip-flops on? Like, why are you barefoot? And he's like, you don't need them, dude. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then
and talk you out of your clothes if you ain't careful. You don't need these either. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, well, I kind of feel like rutted. He's like, why don't you? I was like, I don't know, man. I guess I could.
You had a Forrest Gump moment and you started running?
So I had a Forrest Gump moment, dude. Started running, felt just like that scene in Forrest Gump. Uh-huh. And it felt like I literally like broke some chains as I ran. And believe me, my feet hurt the next day, like all bruised up from running on the rocks. But I don't regret it for a minute, man. Like it was a huge breakthrough for me internally. And that's what really got me start to question, like, okay, like, is this church thing really of my benefit? Is it of my highest good? Like, is it really helping me spiritually grow?
That's a good question.
I couldn't positively say yes to myself at that moment after this experience, because I had just had this direct connection with the thing I was seeking externally up to this point in my life. Very spiritually lost, just looking for some hope and, an alternative to all the fear that I was surrounded in, that I had continued to ingest, through all the stuff I was looking into. And I needed a sort of balance, like if you don't have a balance along with all that dark shit, like sooner or later it's going to take you over, man. And like, lead you to a deep depression, shit like that.
Oh, yeah. I've been battling that stuff my entire life. Because the thing is I've realized that, I guess, the Hebrew mystics, or whatever you want to call them, the Kabbalists, we have names for everything. They call religion the Dalet, right? Which is like the letter, the Dalet, which is the doorway. So religion was simply meant to be a doorway for us into the mysteries. And some people stay there with their faith because they can't get past their fear. And that's fine, right? But if you ever read Revelations, there's these, how you get in the church and they're like, well, you're preaching works. We're saved from works and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, if you read Revelations, there's a couple of things that Christ is saying in there. Like, okay, for the people that don't know, right, I'm going to save you, right? You can use my name, whatever. But for the people that do know, like you do know the wisdom, I'm going to hold you accountable. Right. And I started reading that, and that scared the hell out of me. Because I thought, man, as a truth seeker, like if you start learning some deeper knowledge, you become more responsible according to the book of Revelations, right? You can't just run back to church and say, well, Jesus this and Jesus that, right? You can't. I mean, you can always do that, right?
I felt that too, man. I feel exactly what you're saying.
But every time you make a breakthrough, there's always that urge to run back and say, Jesus, help. I screwed up. I shouldn't have done this. But once I got to that point where I don't know, man, it's like this voice that tells you, like, what are you talking about? I've been helping you the whole time. Keep going. It's like, oh, well, I don't have to go back to church. I can if I want.
Right.
You always have your faith. Right. See, I think religion has a good purpose. I don't think I think there's a lot of corrupt people in there for sure. And And that's what we learned. Like you were talking about your story, you know, like your parents, you trust your parents, and it's a scary life, right? Because then your parents take you to this church, they take you to school, and they take you to church. Then you learn you can't trust the school. And then you get older and you learn you can't trust the people in the church. And then you get older and you realize your parents are just as full of shit as you are. Right. And then you start looking into all the systems and governments and everything else. You can't trust them either. So I honestly think all of the truth seekers out there are people that deal with fear through trying to understand what's true, you know, right? Where the other people just are dealing with fear based on an illusion they're not willing to give up.
I completely agree with that statement.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying faith is a lie, but faith in what exactly?
I think you got to have faith in yourself first and foremost.
Yeah. The great I am, which by the way, was witnessed through a burning bush of acacia and through the place called Pineal and all this other places that you're exploring. Right. So you're what you're doing now back in the day would be considered bad, brother.
Oh yeah.
Bad. You know that, right?
Oh yeah. that's what I've discovered in all the books I've read and all the great documentaries I've watched along this journey, man, is like, we were the original people that would have been, burned for everyone to see or put in a chopping block. Like, we were the heretics.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I would have been strung up a few times, I can tell you that.
And whether that came up in a past life or whatever, I don't know what you feel on reincarnation, but that's another rabbit hole of its own, where that goes. But
have you had past life experiences through your psychedelic experiences? Have you felt any of that?
Oh yeah.
Really?
So I wanted to say, so that LSD experience was a major breakthrough for me and really got me started to realize and wow, like psychedelics, at first it was psychedelics could change the world. And I still believe that to a certain extent. I think, it's important how we guide people into this. Like it is uncharted territory and, I think set and setting is very important, and the intention you're going into it with, all that stuff plays a role. So, we got to keep that in mind as we go forward. But I do see us living in like a psychedelic renaissance right now, and that's another thing that gives me hope as far as the accessibility to these things that have been taboo for so long. And, cannabis was the first brick laid in that sense, I would add, because I think, cannabis legalization has led to, mushrooms being legalized. And, you already see ketamine therapy out there, but ayahuasca is being talked about more and more. And, you can talk about the pros and cons of, okay, like, there's places that ayahuasca should be held, in the region that it's native to and stuff like that. Like it shouldn't be in
it shouldn't be selling country. Yeah. On the street next to Walmart or something.
Right. And that's rightfully so. I agree with that. But
but have you ever had like a bad trip, something that scared the hell out of you?
Oh yeah.
Good. I want to hear about this because
more times than not, brother.
We have to talk about the shadow, right? We have to. Yeah. Like we're at the top of the hour with Andre Mytty, host of Ascension of the Chessman. Calling numbers 1-800-588-0335. Look, if you've had one of these experiences too, or anything like that, you hear him or I talk about, chime in. It could be a psychedelic renaissance. I don't know. All right, everybody, make sure you go to contactatthecabin.com and sign up to get a ticket to the event, which is coming in February. It is limited. We're going to go to California as well as Mount Shasta. I'll be there with myself, Owen Hunt, Brandon Powell, and we may have some announcements coming up. I told you guys I got to get with Darren and talk about what's going on with that, but go ahead and put your deposits down to go too. I want to thank you guys that just made recent donations, also grabbing something from Lighting the Void shop as well, and our new station sponsor, which is foodforceabundance.com. Go to foodforceabundance.com, put in the code word fringe, and you get 5% off on any of their plans, any of their blueprints, any products that they have there to sell, so that you can start growing your own food and becoming more self-reliant and healthier. We have Andre Mytty here, host of Ascension of the Chessman, and I think it's just getting interesting because we've talked about your religious upbringing, your first psychedelic experiences, all of this stuff. We're getting into the Book of Revelations, which is one of my favorite subjects. But we got to talk about the dark stuff, like how, you just heard Jess's report. You're right. There is a renaissance happening. The government's already trying to get their hands in it with the pharmaceutical companies, like trying to microdose you through nasal spray and stuff. So it's coming.
Right.
All right. It's the next thing on the, I guess you could say, the drug list. It's cannabis. Now it's mushrooms and stuff. But do you think people are ready for that? Because there are dark things, like we were mentioning before the break, that you have to deal with that are all your own,
Yeah. And it's not, I want to start off by saying too, it's not for everybody, but something like ayahuasca really revolutionized the way I saw these medicines. I mean, after that breakthrough on LSD, I would have many mushroom journeys after that that were crazy, a lot of great insights, a lot of shadow work, a lot of, dark stuff came up, like literally feeling like I was possessed or other people were possessed.
Really?
And like exercising demons, like getting them out the window. So, I had a lot of this programming still in me from growing up in the church. And, one day my girlfriend at the time, she showed me, or she had told me that she was going to do ayahuasca for the first time. And I didn't believe her. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you flying to the Amazon? Like, what's going on here? And she found this place in Orlando, Florida, called Soul Quest. And so she went down there before me, and she, came back, completely different person.
Is that when she broke up with you? After she got back from this thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were already on the brink of breaking up before she even went. She was struggling with alcohol and prescription drugs at the time.
Okay.
And so, she was trying to get off of those. She had heard, many positive stories about people getting off pharmaceuticals and, being alcoholics, just healing their inner child, stuff like that. Just a lot of crazy healing stories. And, it was, I don't mean to say like it happened overnight, but there was just something different about her. Like her energy was different. She was talking differently. And, it would be a process of integrating that experience that would continue on. And, just before we broke up, she was like, I'll pay for half of the retreat if you go down with me.
Oh, so she wanted you to go too, huh? Okay.
Yeah. So she wanted me to go again. So she was going for the second time, and it was my first time. And, it was a crazy eye-opening experience, man. I was given Rupe for the first time, which was sacred tobacco, snuff that you shoot up your nose. The shamans do it for you, but that felt like a shotgun shell to the back of the brain, like right out the gates, because we got there a night early. So I was just getting to warm up to the place, and I was like, damn, like
they're getting you warmed. Yeah, they're getting you warmed up right now, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And it wasn't psychedelic, but it like tobacco is definitely a plant medicine too. And I think that's something that's kind of been lost in our culture more so, or just colonialization, I guess you could say, of just, abusing tobacco more than, treating it like a medicine in indigenous cultures and such. so anyways, getting into the journey parts, you know, at first, man, like, I was just looking around at everybody, and because there's a lot of people there. There was like 65 people, and I see this guy, like, he's like yelling out in all these languages. I literally think he's possessed. And I suddenly see all the volunteers rush towards him, and he's like kicking them and like forcefully trying not to let him touch him.
Oh, he's flipping out, huh? Yeah. Okay.
Like 10 feet from me. And, you know, my journey's just getting started. And, you know, so I'm like freaked out. Like, what the fuck? Like, am I in hell right now? Like,
did you just drop into like, all the hell, like into demons? Right. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, I got you.
And so during this whole experience, like the overlying duality of it was, for a while, man, I was the devil. Like I was that identity we've created, or that idea of what the devil is. Like, whoa. I was that. And, you know, I had horns and like everything.
You
and
became
then,
Satan.
Literally. And then I was God later on, and I felt like I was in control of other people's journeys. And, you know, I felt like my ego was really coming out. That's what it really was.
Right.
Was my ego was in control. And it was like this overarching duality of God versus the devil going on, of like still dealing with that programming and way of thinking.
Yeah.
And then the second time I would go to drink ayahuasca, so I battled with this same duality, but it came in different archetypes. It was like a father Abrahamic God versus Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, like this feminine goddess energy, Sophia, you know, and it just came down to, it was divine masculine and divine feminine. But, you know, it was like this push and pull within me of like having to choose one. Like my parents are getting divorced or something. Like I got to pick a side. And then the other one's getting jealous because I'm picking a side.
Wow. So this journey was taking you on like polarities between everything, between dark, good and evil, God, Satan, male, female. Like it was just jerking you back and forth between the poles, huh?
Yeah. And I feel like it's all within myself, you know, like that's all my own programming I'm working through. And, you know, you got to learn to navigate through the medicine as well and completely surrender. Because, you know, if you're stuck in the fear mode, if you're stuck in trying to control the experience, then you're going to have a really rough time. And I think the same can be said about life. Like if you don't surrender, and that's where I think faith comes in, man, just in the fact that surrendering to having faith in yourself that it's all going to work out for your best, your highest good. And you got to put the action in to get there. But I feel like there is some predestined feels to life in certain senses. And I think that can be argued either way. But, you know, it's crazy to me how those two experiences tied together. And then the third journey was a solo mushroom journey I had on 5 grams of mushrooms in silent darkness. And it was like this overarching theme of duality versus unity or non-duality. And, you know, just learning to surrender to the mystery, realizing that, you know, all like it's all one at the end of the day. Like, yeah, it is duality, but that's just the frame we see it through. But, you know, it's all this falsely created division. And, you know, Terrence McKenna always said to, you know, take that heroic dose of 5 grams in silent darkness. And I put a lot of intention into it. You know, I you know, was very careful of what I listened to that week, as far as, you know, what was in my subconscious mind in the recent past.
You weren't listening to any Danzig or Cannibal Corpse beforehand or anything, right?
No. And so it was like a seamless experience, man, from like sober to, you know, truly breaking through, fully surrendering. And, you know, it was like an Akashic record in my mind of like, it was like this library with all these books, and there was a ladder. It was like a circular shape, and it was like a spindle ladder you could just like push around the room.
Whoa.
And you could climb. Yeah, you could climb up the ladder and like go to any book, and it would like take you to a memory, or you could look up any answer to any question you had to ask. So I'm just sitting there like having a conversation, I guess, with my higher self, I would call it, of just like asking all these questions. Like,
did you take 5 grams?
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro.
In tea. I feel that's the best way to take them. For the longest time, I had a lot of resistance to mushrooms because I'd always get like stomach rot. But I think there's something to be said about that and how that relates to your inner resistance and your own, trying to control it.
Oh yeah, you can bet your ass if you take 5 grams, tendencies. You're not controlling nothing after that.
No. They dissolve all boundaries, man, and that's what they did for me. And help me to rewrite some of the frameworks that I was working with for a long time that really weren't serving me anymore, and I felt were holding me back. Just coming to the realization, talking Christianity, of like, we're waiting for the guy that died on the cross to resurrect and come save us again. And we have to repent before doing so, right? But that allows us to like wait as long as possible, delay the process to like change ourselves, to like, be the change we wish to see in the world, take that action to like change our addictions, whatever it may be that may be plaguing us,
like
carrying our own cross, bro.
Yeah, that's right. See, I was just fixing to say the exact same thing you just said, because we don't look at that as a metaphor, right? Like when he says, I'm with you always, right? Lo, I'm with you always. I'm coming back and all this stuff. And he's going to come down on a white horse. Like they don't see the astrological correspondences to it, that it could be a metaphor for you opening up your consciousness to the I am right here, right now, Yeah. And so when it says in the Bible, like the land will flatten out and people will rise from their graves and all this other stuff, people literally believe the earth's going to roll out flat. Everyone's going to come out of their graves. It's when you reach that unity consciousness. That's what he's talking about. When the third eye sees through the veil of the illusion, right? And you see everything, everybody, we're all connected. You get to that Christ consciousness, then you reach divine revelation. It's not like after you die and, you're either going to go to heaven or hell. Like all that stuff is happening now, right now. Like it's right now. Yeah.
That's another point I wanted to bring up. That was evident from that LSD journey on, man, of just like, you have no choice once you surrender to be fully present in the moment, in this now moment, which is a fucking gift. I mean, it's called the present.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And, you have no distractions at that point. Like nobody's sitting on their phone on a psychedelic experience, like we don't have any other time but now. We're not thinking about, oh, we got a podcast tonight, or, oh, we got this or that, we are fully present, and it removes all distraction, and it really allows you to tap in, what all the people are pointing to, and all these traditions, they all have different ways of saying it. And, that's just the kind of conclusion I've came to, is all religions are just, many rivers to the same ocean.
Yes,
they're all telling the same story in different ways.
Dr. Stylianos Tesla says it the same way you just did. He says that they're all jewels on the same like necklace or something. Like they're all diamonds and pearls, right? So we look at religion like it's bad and corrupt. Well, everything's bad and corrupt because we got people in it. But the teachings that lead you to God, in my opinion, whether it's Catholicism, even Muslim teachings, Gnosticism, Christianity, Jewish, whatever, like it's all leading you to that oneness. It's all leading you to God, It's the doorway, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm thankful I did grow up in the church, but I think there's so much to be said about ayahuasca, for example. Like I've met so many people. Well, many people that I've met personally, like that I met at the retreats that I did go to, you know, they said they came there an atheist and they left believing in
yes,
there's something bigger. Like this isn't all random, and there is more meaning here.
That's beautiful. Like,
yeah,
the church isn't the only way that you can find that, right? Like, maybe I came to move to Florida for a different reason than I thought. I didn't know there was a church down here 30 miles from me that I could go to, because now I want to do ayahuasca. You think I should go to that place, dude? Is it where you went?
Yeah, I can set you up, man.
Cool.
Yeah, we can talk after the show more, but yeah, I'd love to help you out, man.
Of course, it's in Orlando. Everything is in Orlando.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. There's a huge plant medicine community down there, man. I think it's continuing to grow. And, I think that's what it's about, is just us, breaking down these barriers of division. And that's kind of what I put into my show was, something that I witnessed firsthand through these experiences, and people say that, oh, they aren't real, or you were just tripping out or whatever. But, no one can take that away from you. That's something you always have to look back on in life. Like, that is a direct experience you have whenever you're in the face of, ridicule or, people not believing you. Like, it
or
doesn't
believing
matter.
in you. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't take away from your experience. And, Terrence McKenna was a heavy influence. Listened to many of his lectures, and Graham Hancock's TED Talk on the War on Consciousness, which actually got banned. He was talking about his experiences with ayahuasca and how it changed his relationship with cannabis, and, kind of built a deeper respect for it rather than just abusing it. Kind of like a woman in a relationship, like you wouldn't want to abuse her. You would want to treat her with respect, as Jesus said, treat everyone the way you want to be treated, and, Graham Hancock talked about. That goes
both ways, women and men, though. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Both ways. Don't mean to frame it like that.
Yeah. Well,
just
society's framed it like that. Trust me, but abuse happens on both ends. I can
I
tell
just
you
use that analogy because, Mary Jane, the feminine energy associated with cannabis.
Well, I'm only saying that because I've been the abused and the abuser. So I know, I've been on both sides of that coin, like I've never beat up a girl or anything, but I've definitely called her a bitch. You know what I mean? Right. So that's still abuse. You know what I'm saying? Like,
verbal abuse.
Abuse is verbal abuse.
That's something. Sure. That's something ayahuasca taught me too, man. Graham Hancock talked about the judgment hall of Osiris, where our souls are weighed in the presence of God's.
Weighed against
God's
a feather.
Scales. Yeah. Yep. And that was really apparent too. I felt like I was being buried alive as a pharaoh in Egypt throughout my experience. I felt like what it was like not to have legs, empathizing with my father's injury.
Wow.
Just struggling with the indecisiveness because I was in resistance, just trusting my intuition to simply go sit by the fire because I was on the patio, like on this concrete pad. But I have like this concrete jungle ideology in my head of like, well, I'm not truly connected to the earth because I'm on this piece of rock on top of the soil. And, so it was this resistance just to sit closer to the fire. And the other side of me was like, well, you're already sitting by the fire. And, I was just being indecisive. So it was just like this crazy lesson of how indecisive I am in life and how much I second guess myself and learning
That's
to
a bad place,
myself.
Isn't it? Indecision. Yeah. Robert Monroe talked about that, that he believes that indecision, and maybe you can tell me this with your ayahuasca experiences, that place. But so there's this, I've talked about this too with the other host, Brandon Thomas, like there's that place where an energy wants something to change and another energy doesn't want something to change. It's kind of like an election, right? You know, some people want the new, others don't. They don't want the change. So there's this energy and there's this place of indecision and stuckness we come into when we make decisions in our life all the time.
Yeah.
The longer you stay there, the more negative and toxic and lower the vibration gets for some reason, right? It's better just to make a damn decision and then adjust than stay in that place of indecision, right? But we've been taught by the outside world, the mirror world, that has judged us so much that every time we come to a decision, we've been taught that we're not good enough to make our own decisions. We need someone else to do it for us, or we're going to be judged somehow or whatever, right? Like, just like I told you, like I've been a bastard in my life. I still have up to this day sometimes, but we're not going to learn anything without making decisions, without experience, you know?
Exactly.
We're not going to learn anything without it. So
completely agree. Yeah. And the beautiful thing, ayahuasca really revolutionized my view on plant medicine, man, was just the fact that I had never seen integration, like circles or sessions alongside, you know, plant medicine journeys, you know, just, you know, getting them through the black market and, you know, taking your own journey, however you got to do it. You know, you're not given like a roadmap of how to get to your destined place. You know, you just got to figure it out yourself and, you know, use the resources you have available. And, you know, that can be tricky. And so ayahuasca made me realize like how important the therapy is alongside with it, of just like, you know, talking about, okay, yeah, you've seen monsters or you've seen lizard people, whatever crazy shit you saw, like what's the underlying meaning beyond that? Like what's beyond that archetype? And
is there anything that you question now that you wonder what the underlying meaning is to from all your experiences that you haven't figured out?
All the time, man.
Really?
All the time. Just continually like reframing you know, the way I look at things, and just being open to all possibilities, because I feel like that's what keeps us stuck, is like, as soon as we come to a disagreement with someone, like conversation's over, like we turn our backs and it's over. But like, can't we get past that and like agree to disagree momentarily?
That would be nice, wouldn't it? And still respect each other.
Yeah. And still fucking be human beings here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That would be totally nice. But that never, well, I'm not going to say never. I think we're getting there. We're getting there, right? Andre Mytty is our guest tonight, host of Ascension of the Chessman. You can go check out that show on any podcast player. Just search Ascension of the Chessman. You can go to Alt Media United as well. We'll be right back. The last segment of the show. The phone lines are open too. 1-800-588-0335. Right here live on the Fringe FM. Stay with us. All right, 1-800-588-0335 is the calling number. Someone just called in and hung up, I guess. Someone from Florida. You can call back if you want to talk to us on the show. Andre Mytty's here with us. We've talked about all kinds of stuff, man. Religion, ayahuasca, you name it, the Catholic Church, Revelations, 2012. I'm just naming some things that we talked about tonight. But, you know what? I think the cool part about this whole journey is what I was talking to you about during break, is that, like, we need to, well, I think there is a movement in spirituality when people talk about shadow work, that a part of that shadow work is like what you were talking about to me just now during break, is realizing your self-worth, and you have to battle some demons to go through that. Like, things are going to come to you in your life to really bring out the best and the worst of you, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's what I've come to realize, like, is you have to have
your teacher,
dude. Yeah. Everyone's your teacher. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, you have to, it doesn't matter what they do to you. It doesn't matter if they love you or they hurt you. Like, you're going to realize who you are. That's what you should take away from it. Like, who you really are. If you leave, like, if you leave a situation and you feel less of a person or less than something, you shouldn't. And if you do, then that's something you needed to work on to begin with. Right. So it shows that in you, you know.
Yeah, it's having the ability to empathize with others, place yourself in their shoes, and, you know, look at it from their point of view too, and like, you know, get outside of yourself and you know, see your part to play in whatever it may be. Because oftentimes we get lost in pointing the finger at someone else, and, you know, there's three pointing back at us every time we do that. And like when we get triggered by others, like it's a constant process of growth, man. It's like not doing the same behavior or like reacting with the same fire they're spewing out at you back, because, you know, that's where our power comes from. Because like when we fire back, I feel like it's like, you know, we're losing our loosh, like we're giving our energy
dude, it's
away.
draining as hell, for real.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got out of a situation where it felt like someone was literally stabbing me and going, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Right. And then it's like, what? You know, it's like you don't have any empathy for me. Look what you made me do. And I'm like, and I snapped, right? I snapped like I've never snapped before, more than once. But then it's like when it's all over and you breathe a little bit, it's kind of like God going, yeah, well, how do you feel about yourself now?
Right.
You see what I mean? Because you feel like a piece of shit afterwards. It doesn't matter if you know, a lot of people will say, well, I defended myself and I, you know, this or whatever, like I'm worth this or I'm worth that. But the thing is like, if you really were worth that and you thought you were worth that, would you have ever even been in that situation to begin with?
Yeah. And, you know, it comes down to like codependency and, you know, I don't know how much you've discussed inner child work on your show, but I think that's what's behind the shadow is the inner child, you know, that was built there to protect you at a young age and get you through very emotionally tough, you know, physically tough times on so many levels, man. And, you know, every time we react in that same way from that original trauma event, you know, it's like a programming that is just playing through in our lives until we change it, you know, and start to, you know, catch it as it comes up, you know, waiting to respond versus instantly reacting. You know, we live in a instant gratification culture where, you know, it's constant notifications on our phone. Like we got to drive through a place to get our food faster. Like everything is like immediate, you know, satiating our pleasures at every corner.
Yeah, exactly.
If we desire.
Do what you got to do to feel better. You can do it right now. And we've got the answer right now, you know, all the time. So you don't have to deal with yourself. You can go get it down the street. You can put it in your stomach, whatever. And I know exactly what you're talking about, man. And those demons kind of like fester. I think they are, in a way, demons, you know, like Dostoevsky talks about these like elementals that we create. So every time we think something or we have an emotion or we think something like lizard people, for example, it's the lizard people, whatever, they're making me do it. Well, that energy form actually goes into the astral realm. Like we created that thing and we can't destroy it. So it's an egregore that stays there, you know? And now people that like go either astral travel or have psychedelic experiences or whatever, they see all this shit that we've created in this place. You know, I'm sure you can know what I'm talking about. You've probably experienced a lot of, you were just talking about it, God, Satan, all this stuff, you know?
Yeah. I was a lizard for a bit too, man. And it was crazy, dude. I was stuck in like repeating the same series of events for the rest of eternity. Like that's the realm I was stuck in of like, all right, this is my life and it's just a dead end wreck. And, you know, it's never going to change. This is all it's going to be, you know, my life is a failure.
You're just a failure.
Just, it was all crumbling down. Like my ego was just breaking down little by little. And, you know, I was finally able to break through that, man, and realize like, no, that isn't me. Like my ego took the driver's seat, like, you know, to cover up and protect me from traumatic events in my life at a young age. And, you know, we all have that. You know, some of us are raised in different ways where we don't have as much traumas, and there's other setbacks in life or challenges that are built in to guide us and ultimately help us grow to our true potential. Just learning to trust the process, have patience with yourself and other people. Take help when you need it. That's something I've really struggled with.
Me too, man.
People pleaser, always pouring my cup out for other people, but, being left with an empty cup and learning you can't pour from an empty cup, man. Like you gotta, take time for yourself and,
always
not feel obligated to return an email or a phone call as soon as you get it, man. Sometimes you just don't have the time.
No doubt about that, dude. Like, I'll tell you about that after this call or two, but that's been another big thing for me, bro. And let's see, 248 area code from, looks like Michigan. You're on the air. Who are you speaking with?
Awesome.
This is Brent.
What's up, Brent?
Hey, Brent.
How are you doing, Joe?
I'm good, brother.
I just want to congratulate your child on graduating high school.
Oh, thanks, man.
That was a big struggle for me, man.
High school?
Yes, I was in special ed math, and I hated math.
Right. So you had a hard time, huh?
Yeah, I hated math class. I have a question. I have actually two questions for you.
All right, shoot.
How is I was looking at the programming, and it appears there's a conflict of scheduling with Jess Rogi's programming. So is there going to be any so how's that going to work?
Jess is going to be on after me 5 days a week. It starts June the 20th. We're still fixing everything.
What time are you going to be on Eastern?
Same time.
Same time?
Yeah, no conflict.
Okay.
All right. What's your next question, brother?
I've been drinking a little bit, so that confused me.
I can tell. It's okay. We all drink from time to time. I had a beer tonight.
All right. God bless you. I was really hoping that you would have Jonathan Kahn on. He is publishing a new book called Return of the God.
Listen, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say it nicely because I love you. You've asked me and called into the show. This is like the 6th time you've asked me to have Jonathan Kahn on. You know I'm working on it, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Can you give me a little bit of a break and let me work on it?
Have some faith.
Have faith in me, brother.
Is he not being nice about it?
I don't know. When he answers me, I'll let you know. Anything else?
Do you need me to work on it?
No, dude, I'll get him on the show, man. All right. Thanks for your call, brother. Don't drink yourself into a stupor, though. We love you. You know I love you.
Some water.
I gotta talk to my guest, though. We only got 10 minutes. Thanks, brother. He calls in like twice a week. He's like, get Jonathan Kahn on. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I will, man. Like, you got to watch out for that stuff, dude.
Demanding.
Yeah, they're awful, like, demanding of me, I
love them, but forgive them, Father. They know not what they do.
No, Brent's cool, man. He's helped the show out a lot. It's just, I think he forgets that he's asked that question a lot, right? Well, I mean, Jonathan Kahn talks about the end of the world, and I think it's because we're talking about revelations. And, dude, here's another thing when it comes to, like, shadow work. I have no idea why our society is so fascinated with our own doom. but we are.
Right.
Why are we so fascinated with our own doom?
This is something I wanted to get into, and I think we saw a lot of this the last 2 years. It stems from people's fear of death. It's a naturally given or born into belief, whether that's programmed into us at a young age or not. I think we all struggle with that. Psychedelics allow you to have that
doom experience.
Well, it's that hero's journey, man. It's that, like in Shawshank Redemption, he has to, climb through a mile of shit to get to
that's a good
heaven
movie.
on the other side. It's a very deep lesson, man, and it's embodied in every religion of that death and rebirth process. Rising from the ashes of your old self, and it's very symbolic of like an ego death, but it feels like a literal death in the experience. So you have to come to grips with the fact that you're going to die someday, and your life up to that point. Are you okay with how you lived it? Are you okay with the choices you made? Are you okay with how you treated people? I mean, all this is weighing on your conscience, and you're really having to go through all that in the experience. And I go to Sweat Lodge every week here locally. I'm blessed to be a part in that, and that whole experience and tradition is symbolic of going back into your mother's womb and being reborn again, so you can be purified and go back to that state of innocence, where we started. And, I think psychedelics have the power to, bring up those experiences and allow you to sit with, your thoughts about death and the anxiety you have towards it, and really give you comfort. If you're able to, get through that experience and surrender to it, it really empowers you afterwards. And
do you think
really
it has something to do with the ego too?
Oh yeah,
because completely. That's what I think about, right? Like, and I know it's my ego, but if I think about death, it's not just, well, how did I treat people? That's a given, right? We all want to know that, but it's also like when Joseph Daniel Rupe dies, nobody gives a shit, right? Like Joseph Daniel Rupe, the individual, disappears. Maybe a few people will talk stories about the experiences they had with him.
Right.
But other than that, who gives a shit? Millions of people die all the time, right? And when you think about that as yourself, we all move around. It's a weird paradox, right? Because we're supposed to believe we're these creators of God and we need to find our divine purpose. We have these big expectations of ourselves here on this earth, and then we could walk across the street, get hit by a bus, and in 2 weeks we're forgotten.
Right. Well, I think, immortality can be found in your legacy and, what you left here in the physical. I mean, you have a podcast, man, and that's never going to be removed.
Now you know why I've done it. It's all for my ego. It's all for my ego.
Dude, it's a beautiful thing. An artist I like, Ab Soul, he talks about that a lot in his music, of how he'll live on through his music, and I think, art is a powerful, almost like timeless thing in that, and the way it can, make people live on long after they're gone.
Brother,
and
you nailed it, man. I tell everybody.
Look at the Bible. Look at the Bible.
Exactly, man. I tell everybody, it's like, well, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. I'm thinking about doing a blog. I'm thinking about doing a YouTube channel. I'm thinking. I'm like, stop thinking and do it, because you have something to offer the world. I don't care. There's something you have to offer the world. And if you don't put it out there, we're not going to have it in our worldly archives to witness. Whatever it is, whatever you went through. I mean, I know a person that has written.
The world isn't complete without you.
Exactly, man. And I know a person that has written things from the dark side point of view. Like you see all these articles about narcissism and shit, right? Yeah. Well, I've read this article that no one really even knows. I don't even think they posted it, about how they know that they've done narcissistic things, and they explain like that whole side of what they went through to become that thing, you know. And it was super eye-opening to me. It wasn't just us pointing our finger going narcissist, right? Like it was a person saying, hey, I got to this way because these things happened in my life, you know. And I was like, dude, put that crap on the internet, like make a podcast about it, like do it so it'll help some people, you know, anything.
Right. And that's what I see it as, man. It's like, it's our offering, you know, it's our gift we're giving away. I think that's the beauty of life is, you know, once you realize what your gift is, then you get to give it away. Like that's the paradox of it. It's not, you know, you got this gift, now you can like hoard it and like keep it for yourself and, you know, become all powerful yourself so you can take advantage of others even more and, you know, be a worse person than you already were. Like, you know, it's such a paradox.
For what your example, here's the perfect example of what Andre's talking about. I look on the Paranormal Radio app, right, which is kind of like the Talk Stream Live of our type of genre of radio. You got John B. Wells, George Norrie, Art Bell, Clyde Lewis, and the Fringe FM. We're number 5, Clyde's 4, Art Bell's number 3. How's that even possible? He's dead. He's been dead for years.
Right.
He's still number 3, bumping up against live radio hosts. He's still, you know, like killing it way past his death because he was so good at what he did and expressing who he was and having those shows. That dude loved radio, man, and you could hear it in every one of his shows. And 10 years, I bet 10 years after he's dead, he'll still be in the top 5 on that channel. You know,
if not longer.
We're getting beat by a dead guy, but then again, so is Clyde, right? So is George Norrie.
That's crazy.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, it feeds to what I was saying, dude. And you know, you can put on any artist that's passed, and you know, it's like they're there with you in that moment when you're listening. You know, music's nostalgic in that way, and you know, like Bob Marley's Redemption songs, one that really sticks out to me. Like that is one of the most timeless songs I've ever heard in my life. And
which one is it?
You know, Redemption song,
the Redemption,
Bob Marley.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking about why do they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. They've got to fulfill the book, you know, talking about very wealthy religious people at the very top that, you know, orchestrate these events, play out the book of Revelations on the world stage.
Yeah, Christ called them harbingers of hell. The Pharisees and Sadducees, and if you look up what that is, those are the little guys wearing the caps and the priest caps, writing all the laws and the books.
Right.
The harbingers of hell. Just think about that for a minute, Christians, right? And you use the Bible as a source of ultimate truth. And that's another thing I can't stand. Like I grew up Christian. I'll always have it in my blood. You know, it'll always be a part of me. But when I have a discussion with anybody and they say, well, the Bible says, and that's supposed to trump the discussion the second they say that, right? So they made the quote from an old scroll so no one can argue anymore, right? And it's like, yeah, there goes the walls. We can't have a discussion anymore.
Yep. I've drawn my line in the sand and that's it. This is the way it is. And that's all ego talk, man.
Yeah.
And like, Christ, the character of Christ was not living through the ego, man. He was living through the soul, the spirit, that divine spark. You know, he was that presence of, you know, the Kundalini awakening, right. You know, climbing up Jacob's ladder, and you know, the Christos oil being fully utilized. You know, he was fully realized. And you know, what really did it for me, man, was I really got more into the Bible and like studying it more after I left the church than when I was in it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I highlighted every single word attributed to Jesus. It's anywhere from 800 to 1,000 words, it's argued. And there's 800,000 words in the Bible. So to put that in perspective for those following, being Christian, followers of Jesus, keep that in perspective and like get to the heart of the message that you're following. Because if you read the heart of Jesus's message, I think, it's don't be a fucking asshole. It's just be a fucking good person.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, we got to get out of here. And I think you're a good person, bro. And I think what you're doing is great, man. Ascension of the Chessmen, I can see it getting even bigger, brother. And I'm glad to have you a part of the Fringe family and glad to have you on the show. And maybe we can do it again sometime, brother.
For sure, brother. Anytime. Thank you.
You guys, we'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same channel. Go check out his podcast, Ascension of the Chessmen. Subscribe to it. Give him a follow. It's rather new, so we need all the follows and subscriptions we can get to support everybody here on the Fringe FM so we can keep this thing a rolling. You guys keep walking in the void. Sweet dreams. Night-night.